John, happy birthday to you, sir, and wishing you an absolutely wonderful birthday celebration. Now, a bit of history for today. On this day in the year 1095, Pope Urban II preached that the West should wrestle control of the Holy Land from the Seljuk Turks, and he did so at the Council of Clermont, triggering the First Crusade. In the year 1493, on this day, Christopher Columbus returned to La Navidad colony, which was established in Hispaniola, and found it destroyed by the first Native American uprising against Spanish rule. The Taino cacique Canaubo led his people to attack the settlement after the brutal treatment they received from the garrison, which disobeyed Columbus's orders. 1807 on this day saw the Portuguese royal family and its court of nearly 15,000 people leave Lisbon for their colony of Brazil to escape invading Napoleonic troops. 1895 on this day saw the Swedish chemist Alfred Nobel's will establishing the Nobel Prize. On 2005 on this day, President El Haj Omar Bongo of Gabon, in power since 1967 and was the longest serving head of state in the world, was re-elected to his third consecutive 7-year term. And in 2013 on this day, Frozen, and that's a movie, Frozen, the highest grossing ever animated film of all time, starring Idina Menzel and Kristen Bell, was released. We now move on to our dish of the day. The Daily Dish is brought to you the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your room, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. Need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Grozile, and Slack Street in Dufort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program for today. And we do hope, of course, that everybody had a very blessed weekend. It was generally peaceful, except that we did see an incident of a homicide in the community of Vieux-Fort. And we will speak about that in just a bit. In fact, the issue there in this instance, it would appear that it did not come as a great surprise even to the parents of the individual, the relatives of the individual in this incident, unfortunately claiming the life of a teenager. And from all indications, again, another life taken away far too early. And this, of course, was the fate of 19-year-old Marcus Prescott, who was in fact killed on Friday afternoon in that southern community. And based on what we've been hearing, of course, the issues being quoted and from a family member, I'm not lying, I can say he was in a gang. It breaks my heart, but I knew he was going to die. I kept telling him what he was doing, that they would kill him. Once I tell him that, and he tell me he know. And that was with the words of the relative relating this situation of just 19 years old and already falling victim and not having to be able to see his 20th birthday or his 21st or his 22nd or his 30th or his 40th. And so it certainly is a very, very unfortunate situation. In his instance, it appears that he was a dropout of the PI secondary school, and it, of course, is very, very unfortunate what happened. In fact, from all indications, his older brother also faced a similar fate just about 2 years ago, being also killed via a multiple gunshot attack on his life, also in the community of Vieux. Of course, this brings very little comfort to anybody, no doubt, as we are continuing to deal with the matter of violent crime in St. Lucia. And we have seen, yes, a lot of efforts on the part of the police, but it's, of course, very difficult to deal with some of these issues, as we are well seeing when they are so very much interconnected. There are so many of these instances that we're dealing with. We are probably, I believe, if not quite at 80, approaching 80 homicides for the year. And that puts us in, unfortunately, a very high band of one of the top 5 in the world when it comes to homicides. And that hasn't let up. And, of course, we know that a lot of it has long-standing issues that we've been dealing with in St. Lucia, but certainly the matter of access to weapons, the access to ammunition is certainly not helping the situation, as we are seeing quite a lot of firepower being placed in the hands of individuals out there. And that, of course, has caused for a tremendous amount of effort in terms of, bringing in the RSS and trying to declare certain areas as escalated crime areas, and advanced equipment for the police, and of course ongoing efforts now, thankfully, to try to ensure that we have more CCTV on our streets, more eyes on our streets. And no doubt it'll be a continuing effort, because it's just not going to go away overnight. It certainly didn't get to this point overnight, and it's certainly not going to dissipate overnight either. Let us hope that we are at the peak when it comes to this situation of violent crime, and let us hope that we can actually see the long-term measures that are definitely needed, hopefully taking some root in this regard. And some of the problems that we are dealing with, as we can see, especially amongst our males, young males, not being interested sufficiently in staying in school, lots of challenges, social challenges that are impacting many families, that allow these individuals to become prey, become members of gangs. They find solace, they find community, they find camaraderie amongst these organizations, and that is part of the problem. They are certainly not finding their hope in institutions that should certainly be providing them with greater support. And so we certainly, as a society, have to be thinking about, well, what are these institutions that are going to be able to support wholesome development of our youth at this time. Just last week, for instance, we heard now Dr. Joseph Redspear, making the point and lamenting that we don't really have very strong clubs anymore. That for the most part, so many clubs have in fact dissipated, they've disappeared, they are no longer front and center in terms of being that positive community institution through which a young person can be engaged, not just in a sport or sports or athletics or whatever sort of pursuit that they would have wanted to get into, but could also see that sense of belonging, that sense of camaraderie, sense of knowing that they have a network that is going to support them. beyond their homes or their families. And that, I think, is a really important aspect. And of course, the ability for the network to allow for greater connections and for them to be able to go beyond just the immediate support that they're getting. So it is certainly very important that we are seeing that we see some of these institutions come forward. And of course, the role of church remains very important in terms of building that and providing that kind of support. And let's hope we can see more opportunity for that. Let's also not forget the need for avenues that will excite young people and the opportunity to learn a musical instrument. I mean, as we were just speaking about St. Cecilia's Day just last week, and unfortunately, although there's a lot of interest in music, although we can see that lots of people are interested in producing music or getting into music, the avenues for a more structured development of these individuals and their skills and talents is quite often not there. And so it really just will remain maybe a passing interest or something that they don't necessarily have the ability to develop to the extent that they can take it international or take it regionally or whatever the case may be. So we certainly do have to think about institutions and how we can support civil society in dealing with a lot of the responses that are needed right now when it comes to the matter of crime. Now, onto the matter of politics. Over the weekend, there was the closed session of the St. Lucia Labour Party, the current administration that is has the majority in the Parliament of St. Lucia, and the leader of that party, the Honorable Philip J. Pierre, and the political leader, in fact, got a resounding display of strength and unity, once again achieving a 100% vote of confidence from the delegates at that meeting. And in fact, I think this is the second consecutive occasion that, in fact, he was able to achieve just that. And of course, that was happening down at the Beanfield Comprehensive Secondary School in Vieux-Fort just yesterday. And so no doubt he would be looking very happily at that outcome, given what has occurred right there. Now, just a few other matters that are still in the news, and we just want to touch on the matter of renewable energy is one that is getting some interest, and of course, in particular, not just renewable energy, but also the push towards developing other alternatives to reduce our energy demand. And in fact, one of those areas is within the transport sector, and in particular, the idea of e-mobility. That's becoming very much a major talking point around the world, as lots of individuals are shifting away from internal combustion engine vehicles, those ICE vehicles, which are not very efficient, and trying to get onto electric vehicles, or in some instances hybrids and then electric, but fully electric vehicles. And that push has been on around the world, and many countries have in fact set themselves targets in that regard to be able to make that transition towards a greener transport sector. Now, of course, in the case of St. Lucia, one can easily say 99.99999, whatever it is, percent, pretty much 100% of the vehicles on the road are still running on fossil fuels. They're running on gas or diesel, and it is clearly something that we can certainly do better with if we can, in fact, make that transition. But of course, the transition towards ensuring that you have more electric vehicles on the road makes sense if we also, of course, are transitioning in terms of renewable energy. And because it makes no sense, of course, for you to be plugging in at your home and that power coming from the utility is still largely driven by fossil fuels, from whether it's diesel or some other fossil fuel source. So the transition that you have to make also requires, of course, a greening of our electricity generation as well. And so that is, of course, a major push that we are seeing a lot of countries trying to do. Still a long ways off from being able to achieve that. And one can look at all the countries around the world, and certainly even those that are trying to make these major shifts still have a very long way off to go, and are still very much dependent on fossil fuels, on non-renewables in the mix to be able to sustain their energy requirements. And that, however, should not stop us from being ambitious in this regard, because, of course, we have, relatively speaking, fairly low demands, whether it is in terms of electricity generation or in terms of transport. It certainly is not something that, as a country, we cannot achieve. And I say so in terms of even being able to potentially even export energies. Many countries in this part of the world, they're even seeing how it is maybe potentially feasible to look towards hydrogen and the production of hydrogen as a fuel, using renewables and allowing that to be consumed locally, as well as potentially exported to other markets as a fuel. And of course, this is a very interesting model of the future, which countries are trying to look towards. Dominica, for instance, which is also exploring geothermal energy. It's, in fact, has been touted as one of the countries that has the highest potentials when it comes to geothermal energy production. They certainly are looking at that possibility, and there are other efforts around the Caribbean to be able to do just that. And it is certainly something that we have to be potentially looking at as we try to make that transition towards a green, sustainable economy, but also an economy that is less dependent on importation of fuel, which would then mean that we become more resilient against these shocks that we have seen in the past when it comes to fuel prices. And we're seeing where the fuel prices are now, and quite often we see that these will go up, and quite if there's some sort of emergency, some sort of war in a very area in the world. We've seen it with Ukraine. We've seen what's going on in the Middle East right now. God forbid it gets worse. God forbid it spreads to become a major multi-country conflict. All of these things can have certainly impacts on that fuel supply chain. And we've seen clearly that it does not put us in a very good situation. So we certainly do want to be in a position where we can be less dependent on fossil fuels, in a situation where we can, in fact, be able to generate far more of our own energy going into the future. And, of course, getting it to a price point where you may very well have to pay something a little bit more, but then if it's actually benefiting the country, if it in fact redounds to the benefit of the country, more of that money is not leaking out of the economy, but actually staying within the economy, that actually works to our benefit in a very significant way. So it may not necessarily be that you may end up paying less for the power that you may be receiving, but if it means that in fact the money that you're spending is somehow coming back to you in some form or fashion and circulating more in the economy, then it actually works out to the benefit of the country as a whole. So these are some of the considerations, no doubt, that have to be looked at in terms of our energy policy moving forward. And I'm raising that, of course, because there was just last week, I think, a workshop on this entire matter of electric mobility. And, of course, that was being put on by the Department of Sustainable Development. And we're also, of course, having this entire conversation because very soon we will see representatives of that institution, that group, heading across to Dubai. And they, in fact, will be heading to attend the 2023 United Nations Climate Change Conference, the UN FCCC. And that, of course, is an annual affair now, and it certainly has been something that countries are looking at in terms of the policy matter regarding climate change and how we can deal with the issue of trying to limit the global temperature rises, and of course the matters of adaptation, the matters of loss and damage faced by countries. These issues are all going to be coming on the table again, and we'll see how far it gets this time around, come November 30th until December the 12th, and this time happening right at the heart of the Middle East in Dubai. And of course, we would note that a number of promises and agreements have been made over time in terms of the Paris Agreement, for instance, and the aim to try to cap the the rate of increase of the global temperature to somewhere around 1.7 to 2.1 degrees Celsius. And that's the best case if, in fact, all countries meet their pledges. And we do note, of course, that here in the Caribbean, and there were lots of efforts to try to push the idea of no more than 1.5 degrees, 1.5 to stay alive was the call. And of course, that still is undoubtedly a better reality for our islands in dealing with the matter of climate change. But as to whether that is going to be achieved, well, we've seen the problems in terms of the lack of will to provide the resources to be able to achieve this. All indications are that countries are going to have to invest trillions and trillions of dollars into these commitments and these pledges. We've seen agencies such as the Green Climate Fund coming on board, but then still the pace at which these projects and these initiatives can get through the bureaucracy of these various institutions, these global institutions, is certainly wanting. Quite often it may take somewhere between 4 years between the project actually getting an application being made for a particular project before that project may even be approved. Far less the point where that project can then get actual disbursements of funds. And so it certainly is still a very difficult situation for small island developing states as they are heading into COP28 in Dubai. And no doubt about it, they will be looking for some more real commitment by the major players around the world, in particular the United States of America, in particular Europe, as well as a lot of these emerging economies and countries like China, for instance, which is, in fact, today the largest emitter in the world. That's our dish of the day. When we come back, we're going to try to take in our weather report, and then we'll head across to take in some calls.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tells for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tells for your balcony. Come down to Tells Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tells Plus, Tells Plus, Tells Plus. Big tells with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A plus. Did all kind of tests. Come down to Tells Plus. We also got gas and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tells on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses, Grozile, and Slack Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Make your home merry and bright with Island Style's massive Christmas sale. Our wide range of porcelain and ceramic tiles are on sale up to 50% off. And that's not all. Save up to 15% off. Bathrooms with bundle and save. The more you buy, the more you save. On gorgeous bathroom vanities, bathtubs, faucets, shower glass, toilets, and more. Plus, contractors and tilers are in for a treat with our special discounts on tiling tools and accessories. Sale on now at all locations. Castries, Rodney Bay, and Beaufort. Or call 450-452 or 453-TILE. It's time to deck the halls, deck the walls, or even deck the deck with huge Christmas savings only at Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And also, of course, on the 1.1, it's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bath. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from between the east, northeast, and east near 20 miles per hour or 31 kilometers per hour. The weather partly cloudy to cloudy at times with some scattered showers today, and a gradual improvement is expected from tonight. The forecast for the Lesser Antilles, partly cloudy to cloudy with scattered showers over the southern and leeward to central Windward Islands. A gradual improvement is expected from tonight. Elsewhere, fair to partly cloudy with a few showers. And the tropical weather outlook. The Atlantic high pressure system will continue to generate moderate easterly winds across the eastern Caribbean region for the next few days. A weak surface trough will continue to cause cloudiness with showers over the central Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. And this was the weather report today as of 12 noon, presented by Island Style Talent Bath.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Make your home merry and bright with Island Style's massive Christmas sale. Our wide range of porcelain and ceramic tiles are on sale up to 50% off. And that's not all. Save up to 15% off. Bathrooms with bundle and save. The more you buy, the more you save. On gorgeous bathroom vanities, bathtubs, faucets, shower glass, toilets, and more. Plus, contractors and tilers are in for a treat with our special discounts on tiling tools and accessories. Sale on now at all locations. Castries, Rodney Bay, and Beaufort. Or call 450-452 or 453-TILE. It's time to deck the halls, deck the walls, or even deck the deck with huge Christmas savings only at Island Style.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046, as well as our WhatsApp number, that is 724-0008. So we're going to go to the phone lines at this time to take in a few calls. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Mr. George, how are you today?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
How's your family?
Very blessed, thank you.
Your family growing, eh?
Yes, indeed. And how is your family?
Good. Let me tell you, I got the tail end of last week there. You were talking to Reds. Reds got an award or something?
Yes, an honorary doctorate from the University of Guyana.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's fitting that they honor Reds.
Very much so.
Yeah, man. Very, very, very fitting. For the length of time he's been around and he continues to be around, and Yeah, man.
And he's still making his contribution, so
absolutely.
it's certainly, he's certainly not going anywhere.
Who deserves his accolades more than
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Anyway, good to hear that. But I think I heard him saying congratulating you on your thing.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Oh, you did get married?
Yes, last week.
Oh, okay, that's great. That's great.
So I'm in your club now.
Yeah. Yeah, boy. Well, I could tell you, you're a brave lad, because, people, this is something that, people afraid of, down here.
Okay.
You know that. And to take on that challenge, boy, that shows that you kind of is a serious person. Yeah, because it's a challenge,
Mm-hmm.
It's a challenge, but
Well, hopefully it'll also be not so much of a challenge, but a joy.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Everything has its good and its ups and its downs. Yes, of
that's what I'm
course.
going to tell you. I hope you enjoy the journey as well as enjoy it.
Endure and enjoy. That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, because it's not about its ups and downs, eh?
Indeed.
You know what I mean? It's not every day, it's going to be joy.
That's right.
So, I mean, it has its challenges, but at the end of it, I mean, I think it's the best thing for our families, for our children,
Mm-hmm.
That's the best, that if parents could stay together and show what it is that, how to settle differences and problems and be together. I think it's better off. It's not a panacea for what the kind of things you're facing in society now, but I think it could help. And I just want to congratulate you on that. And
Thank you very much.
I hope
Much appreciated.
Works out.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you very much.
Okay, my brother.
Have a good one.
Yes,
And we just wanted to take in another note. Of course, the number to call in is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. Another comment coming from this time Mrs. Sarah Flood Bobra, former Castries MP. And that story coming out of the St. Lucia Loop News. She's saying it's high time the church speaks up on issues. We'll take that in just a bit. But first, let's take in another call. Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom. What's on your plate?
First time calling the show.
Oh, okay. Welcome, caller. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. I want to congratulate Philip J. Pierre, one of the best prime ministers in St. Lucia right now. I was listening to Team of because I was trying to think if Shelton Daniel would look like there are problems.
Oh, okay.
And I heard him saying that the way he's talking like he's not in favor of Philip J. After the thing going so hard, Philip J. Pierre is his head again. But I see, Mr. living in dreamland.
Sorry, what was said about him?
He said that the way Philip J. Pierre, after the thing so hard, Philip J. Pierre, the supporters of Labour put the delegate for Philip J. Pierre as leader. So I just laughed and I said, that man's sick. Aaron Chassis was hard in challenge during COVID. Aaron Chassis they still put him ahead. So what's the difference? But the difference is that it's much better now. Any people complain about things hard, message get hard. I have my family all over the world. Okay, my father had 20-something children. We used to get a barrel every year. Mm-hmm. And this year we're not getting. They said they rather send them money first because they cannot afford to buy the barrel. They cannot afford to buy the message. But the way Shastley talking, like you say, send the show alone, things hard. I send the show alone to have crime. I don't know if there's into Trinidad, what happening to Trinidad right now. There's 6 and 7.
Yeah, a lot of gang
going
problems
on there right now. So I don't know why Shastley is blaming St. Lucia, is blaming the Prime Minister for the crime of St. Lucia. It happened in Trinidad, it happened in Barbados, it happened all over the world. 6 and 9. So 6 and 7. So I don't know what. You see what happened? A lot of people. This is like a man and a woman. You turn into a woman, you leave the woman get the next man, like she's much better, you'll get vexed. That's the way Shastley doing right now, then. And I consider I challenge Philip J. Pierre, good luck, and keep on the good works. Right now, I'm a happy person. Because what I could not do 5 years ago, I could do it now. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks very, very much for that contribution, caller, and have yourself a wonderful day. And, of course, the number to call in is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And, of course, we will continue to see statements being made by the opposition and by the ruling party. back and forth, and that is the nature of politics. Everybody will have their opinions and see it some way, but of course we have to somehow figure out somewhere down the middle what is the reality. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
I just finished eating.
Oh, well, that's good, caller. Glad you had your
And I
meal on time.
also want to congratulate you.
Oh, thanks very much, caller.
Yes. Just that first of all, I would like to say that I never climbed the Fort Rodney when I was sighted.
Ah,
I
really?
happened to go yesterday all the way to the top. I happened to hear a guest saying, wow, this is ridiculously beautiful.
It is, isn't it, eh? Yes, it is.
I challenged myself and we went up there.
Yes.
We sat up there for a long while. It was great, you know. Imagine all the time I was sighted. I never did it. But
Well, you know, it's amazing sometimes, caller, how we don't enjoy our own island, you know. And that, I think, is something that I don't know how you can achieve it, because I remember I was so surprised when I remember being at A-level, and a friend was telling me that they had never been to Soufrière. I couldn't believe it at that point in time. But it is true that, you know, sometimes, you know, people somehow they don't make it the school doesn't do school trips, and they don't get opportunities to actually enjoy their country. And again, that's really something that we should almost insist needs to happen, you know, in terms of experiences that should occur while you are in school.
But we did that every year. Sometimes 3 times we took the train to the Pigeon Point.
Mm-hmm.
We took the older ones all the way to the fort, but I never went. Then we would go into this place where they would give us all the information of all the ruins and all sorts
the interpretation center, yes.
Yeah, we would also go to the Mon.
Mm-hmm.
We would go. We have been to Soufrière where they had this with the sugar cane thing, all of those places. And
yes.
it was so interesting. So I just love journeying around, but there's certain places I've never been to.
Mm-hmm,
And every time, you know, I have my family and my sister there, you get a chance to do those things, and just listening to guests, visitors.
Yes.
Basking in that thing, you know.
Yes, yes.
But what I really call is, I heard you talk about the crime. Because is it 70?
I think we're over 70 now, yes.
To me, I thought it was at 69 and that last killing was 70.
Oh, the last one is 70? I could be wrong, but we'll have to try to get the exact figure.
Yeah,
but
I heard the Prime Minister said there has been no killings for the whole of November. And when I heard he said that there was no killings for the whole of November, I said to myself, you should have never said that. Because you know, as soon as you say something like that, somebody have to do something to tell you have no right to say those kind of things. And it was good hearing that it was so peaceful.
The only thing I mean we can say is that, I mean, just based on how we were going in the beginning, the first quarter of the year, sorry.
Yes.
We were at pace to exceed 100, right? At this current time, it's not likely that is going to happen, obviously, but it will still be a record year. If you look at it, I mean, maybe things might really, really slow down, and this might be an outlier case. But just based on where we are now, it probably will be a record year in terms of homicides. Not as bad as where we were going.
Yeah, because I heard Spider predicting over 100.
Well, I mean, if you just looked at the numbers and the trends, yes, it was suggesting that you might have been going in that direction. But thankfully, it has slowed down the rate at which we were experiencing these cases.
You said about the social programs, the church, the different groups, the sporting groups, and all of those things. But sometimes we, as the people, the families, people that have children, it should start with us, because some of us know very well that we cannot provide for our children. Sometimes the man in your life cannot even assist you, even in feeding the children or being there as a comforter, just somebody to guide that child along. And yet sometimes we know that, and yet we still go. Now, when you say that, you say, oh, people will say, oh, well, how you can tell people they cannot make children. But you should know your situation, because don't tell me you don't have a mindset.
Except the caller, we're currently in a situation where we are making far fewer children, and we have far more crime. So, and I mean, I'm not saying obviously times have changed. People's expectations are different. They want more things.
And maybe the far fewer trends sometimes do not have a father figure.
Sorry?
You see, although we may be making
fewer children, we do.
But
well,
sometimes do they have a father?
Even that I don't know, because if you look at the figures of for a very long time, one of the very consistent statistics that we've had in our demographics has been that of children born out of wedlock. That figure has been about 85% for decades. Has not really shifted. So it's a pretty fixed cultural trend that we've been seeing. So I don't know that we are in a situation where we have fewer father figures now than we've had before. It's possible. It's possible that we're seeing it getting worse because we're seeing a lot of young males dying. So it is possible it's getting worse. It might be that you might have that, a lot of them are actually, as a result of that, you have a lot of orphans by some extension. But we've also known that we've had for a very long time an extended family situation, grannies, aunts, raising children, uncles. So it's obviously not the ideal. One of the major issues, we can also point out to in terms of a significant shift, is that of the nature of the work that a lot of people have to engage in. So we're now seeing a lot of work where individuals are in the tourism sector or in other sectors where they're working at night shifts. They're away from the family after when they come home from school. So that might be a major problem in terms of what is one of those social situations that is driving what we're dealing with right now.
We really don't have much grandparents around, because growing up as a child, we always had our grandparents around to be there. So when my mother didn't work, we have to go to our grandparents.
We also have a lot of people working overseas now, and I'm saying so because we always had certain situations where that was a reality too. I mean, people would have gone away to work in Curacao, in Guyana, in Barbados, all over the world. So we've had that tradition too. But I guess, there are a lot of other factors that are seeming to be coming in. So, I mean, the social analysis and research definitely has to be done to see, well, what are some of the real major problems where we actually are feeling and where we can have the biggest impacts.
But why is it that the young girls, the young women, will find all means available to push themselves forward? So why is it that the young males cannot follow in their footsteps? The youth economy, all of the different things they have, the majority are only girls and women. And there are opportunities for them, all sorts of things. But do they take it on? No. So how do you get to them? How do you speak?
Well, maybe now that is an interesting point that you're making, and I think we as a society are probably the ones failing our males by the type of socializing that we actually are providing them with. Because you're right, as it is right now, again, all of these programs are being put out there, and it's like 80% female, 90% female.
But have listened attentively, and they have had so many programs for young men. Yeah, but do they participate? Do they go and take the opportunity that is given? They don't, because at least even this guy that is the CEO, what's his name, Martin James, tried to get this thing together, especially for International Men's Day, how to put a group, how they can reach young guys like themselves to prevent them from going into crime and all sorts of things, how he can actually use his talent as a bandsman, police thing too. But do they turn up? Even if you try to reach them, do they turn up? Do they listen to you? How do you get to them? That is the thing. How do you get to most of those young men? You see, you pass, you sitting on the block. If you try reaching out to them, how many of them would even listen?
There's a push now on by the Ministry of Education, and I'm hoping that we can see some shifts there in terms of the curriculum. And this has been, I mean, goodness knows how long we've been talking about, decades upon decades upon decades, about the need to have technical and vocational education, not as an aside, but mainstream within our education system.
And did you see how? Can I ask you? Did you see how Sanders, I think, and the SLHJ is trying to transform the graveyard? Did you see that?
Yes, and that the Tourism Enhancement Fund. They're using that fund, which is something that in fact the government had said they had allowed to develop. This thing of some monies being put aside from the donations of visitors to fund this, and so
these guys what people say about people living in those marginalized places.
The stigmatization is a major problem, and it's a problem that we many people are guilty of, because somebody is coming from a certain area. But it's a lot of other issues too, because then the issue of housing is another major one. People are forced into very unfortunate housing situations or substandard homes, and because we don't have sufficient apartments or units for individuals, because they're trying to get to where the work is. So they need to be in a advantageous location, but they can't afford. The affordable housing is not there, and so it's a part of the challenge of the housing policy that we've seen. We've seen a lot of times, people will hear about investments in housing, and then when I wouldn't say far-flung places, but then it's not very convenient for where the employment exists, and so you have to have a housing policy that is meeting those needs, especially. So yes, so the situation with Castries and dealing with this, but of course we see it's not just Castries that we're facing tremendous housing problems. Beaufort has its housing problems as well. The lack of land ownership there, people are squatting invariably. They don't have title to their properties where they're at. These are age-old problems. I mean, this is going back, you can say.
One thing I realize is that most of the crime in the city of Castries, there have not been a lot of crime in the city of Castries. When you listen to the graveyard, you listen to Grass Street, you listen to not seems to have been in much shooting or stabbing.
Yes.
It usually seems more in the south, in the east, and those places. But to me, listening attentively to what's going on, they don't seem to be much. Because before you would have Wapatat and all of these places, a whole lot of killing, but it seems to have cooled down a good bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's something.
No, there's certainly a lot of good changes that you're seeing in certain communities. That you can see some hope in terms of improvement in the housing conditions and access issues. But I mean, we still have a ways to go, especially in terms of that urban Castries area, in terms of the improvements there, and there are opportunities as well. There are a lot of abandoned properties in many of these inner city suburbs that can be potentially opportunities for redevelopment, urban regeneration, and it's definitely needed. But of course, we have all of these other issues that, in terms of the land tenure problems and the family land issues,
But I also think if you bring something that can uplift the people where they are, if places people stigmatize,
yes.
if you bring something just like Grass Street from the time the Derek Walcott.
The Walcott House, yes.
It has uplifted the people. You don't even hear much coming out from that place.
And we should also point out that it was supposed to be far more impressive in terms of the project itself. There was just the first phase of the project that ended up being done, and then it got stopped by the last administration. Let's hope that this administration, in fact, I think the Prime Minister has been on record saying that he wants that to continue and to get the funding to be able to realize the full extent of the museum and the art center and opportunities for economic livelihoods. And that is really important in these communities.
And that is completed
Yep.
By next year, maybe to 2025, I hope it's. Because when I saw when I heard what it was supposed to be like, and I see it had been stopped, I was really disappointed for the people living around that place there.
Yeah, and again, there's so much heritage. There's so many interesting stories that can be told. In that same area, again, you have the family house of Mr. Sir Donley Alexander, former Chief Justice of Nigeria. The Lewis property, which is actually just where Sir Alan Lewis lived. In fact, is now the NHC headquarters, NHC offices, in fact, on that site there. So that, you can certainly, have a more enriched visitor experience, especially when you look at a lot of these. We're talking about improving and enhancing the experience of the visitor, the cruise passenger.
Yeah.
The cruise passenger coming off wants to be able to...
It'll curb the crime problems in a lot of those places because they will feel that they too accept.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Anderson was making that point at that same Grass Street initiative that, one of his dreams is that a visitor should be able to walk freely and safely in any part of St. Lucia. Yeah. And that should go for any citizen should be able to walk freely and safely in any part of the country. So the idea that, boy, you can't go there, you can't do this, that should not be the case at all. In such a small country like ours that's supposed to be paradise, this idea that people should be afraid or, that should not be at all. Especially not in the heart of the city. So let's hope that initiatives like that can, dovetail and really take root, because we definitely need them in Castries, but as well all over the island, really.
Yes, I hope so.
Yes. All right. Thanks very much for that contribution, caller. Have a good one.
Enjoy your honeymoon.
Thanks very much, caller. And of course, initiatives like the Heritage Tourism program, that's really important, and the community tourism agency and the work that they need to be doing to ensure that these communities are feeling the kind of benefits and making those liaisons between the visitor coming in and the individual within the community. That's vital. So I know there are a number of initiatives. I think the Taiwan Technical Mission, ICDF, they're trying to also do a community-based tourism initiative, and those are all very important because many of these communities certainly can tell a story. They can provide their own differentiated, unique experiences, and that, I think, is really what can set us apart in terms of a visitor experience, for somebody who will say, yes, I can come to St. Lucia and I can spend 11 days and in every district I can get a different experience each day or something to that effect. And I think, in time we can get there, but we certainly have to empower individuals to be able to develop that product, develop the sites, develop the experiences, developing the tours and attractions, because there is, in fact, an opportunity to generate wealth through that. And there's nothing wrong with tourism as a sector. When you look at Europe is greatly dependent on tourism. Yes, they also have a lot of other industries, and it certainly does not mean that we should not also be looking to see how we can develop other sectors. But we still have a long way to go in terms of developing our very own tourism sector to ensure that it, in fact, is a world-class experience, a world-class product that is available. As I mentioned, we wanted to touch on some other statements being made in the news, but we'll perhaps have to do that tomorrow for another program of the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. So hope you can join us for that. And of course, that's all the time we have today. I'm Calix George Jr. saying goodbye.